live in the dungeon. This is the Dream Warrior Review. I'm Kurt Thomas.
I'm Mick Strawn.
And this is episode 88. It's a very special episode as we're going to be talking about
Nightmare on Elm Street.
So how are you guys doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Mick?
He hasn't hurt himself yet, so he's doing pretty well.
Kurt keeps dragging me into the dungeon, and that's a good thing. I'm writing a book.
Oh, yeah, that's right. How is that going?
It's coming along so well. The people that I've been talking to that I was there with at the time, and it's amazing because what it becomes is a memory bounce back. In fact, 2 of the interviews, I'm just going to print the interviews straight. The interview that I did with Peter Chesney, who is the mechanical effects guy, and the interview that I'm doing with Rachel, which I'm not finished with yet. I'm just going to print those as chapters themselves.
Oh, that's excellent.
So cool.
You want me to tell you something that you can't tell anybody else, but that's an amazing little fact. On Nightmare on Elm Street 4, when we were reassembling, and he reminded me of it, and all of a sudden I thought, oh, that's right. We were just assembling the bones, right? And we had all these little sets, and these little sets had different versions of the skeletons, either pulling together or the wax, being melted off of them. Mm-hmm. And one of them was experimental, was never seen in the film. And it was a sweater that was made out of cotton candy.
Oh, wow.
And we had a cotton candy machine there. And we were spinning out sweaters. This was Peter's idea. It was so interesting, but we could never really get it to work because we could never get it green enough or red enough.
That would make for like an excellent extra Freddy Krueger sweater, cotton candy.
Right.
I would eat that.
See, and the thing is in the end, we never got the colors deep enough, so it never looked. Because what we were trying to do was then spritz the sweater and run it in reverse, so that the sweater bubbles and bubbles and bubbles and then becomes a sweater, right?
Awesome. Yeah.
But never worked out that way, and we wound up just hardly ever getting enough cotton candy together because the crew would eat it at a horrible rate, There was like 175 people in the building at the time, so
Oh my God.
Cotton candy wasn't sticking around for very long. Sticking. See what I did there?
Very nice.
Well, thanks for asking us. We're excited to be on.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. This is so Kurt, being as you have the radio voice, why don't you let everybody know what we're doing?
Well, see...
Wait,
Stop
sorry,
that.
wrong voice.
Jeez.
So
Wash
this
my
is
hair.
exciting because, this is actually the second time we've done a podcast with another podcast on geeks of the industry. These girls are amazing. I've listened to their podcast, and I like what they do. Elm Street Girls. I love them.
And what are we doing here?
We are going to talk about, surprise, surprise, Nightmare on Elm Street 1 and 2.
But you know what? That's going to be 2 separate...
Yes, two separate episodes.
So
we're actually kind of teasing those part 2 then right now.
we are. But,
okay.
but we're also going to do 3 and 4 just a little bit later.
Yes.
And we're going to just ramp ourselves up to the Nightmare on Elm Street 4 30th anniversary. And the girls, what are you guys doing? I thought you had something coming out. I can't think of what it was called. What are you guys
some
doing?
kind of project they were working on.
That you were working on.
I mean, it's just this little project called Fred Heads. I mean, it's nothing. It's nothing big. I mean, it's just
nothing big.
It's just a small little documentary about the fandom of Nightmare on Elm Street. Nothing special.
Yeah, there's
nothing
not
special.
a lot of fans out there, so we're...
No, it's not. And you haven't been working on it hard at all, no.
No, I mean, I haven't seen Diandra in like 2 years. We haven't been working on nothing. Yeah.
I got so you don't even want to see me right now. I mean, I hit the wall.
These guys are pulling together Fred Heads the movie,
Yes.
And I'm going to have a book coming out.
I know.
So there's all kinds of
It's a weird coincidence that we're talking about Nightmare on Elm Street 1 and 2, or 1 right now.
It is. Is that a coincidence or is it engineered?
Oh, I don't know. I just do what I'm told, so I'm excited about
it. Okay, Kurt. Now, you're going to do what you're told? Yeah, you're going to do what you're told, right.
Actually, it might be the other way around.
Yeah, I was going to say, I do what I'm told. So, Kurt, why don't you give us a read on the film?
Oh, my gosh. Well, see, my reads aren't that good because I usually just go to the first thing on IMDb and just kind of...
Well, then give us the first thing on IMDb.
I don't know why I'm looking at Friday the 13th right now. That's not the right one. Several people are hunted by a cruel serial killer who kills his victims in their dreams while wearing a red sweater. Red and green sweater.
Red and green.
I added that part.
Oh, okay.
While the survivors are trying to find the reasons being chosen, the murderer won't lose any chance to kill them as soon as they fall asleep.
What is the name of this?
A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nightmare
Came
on Elm
out in
Street.
1984.
I have not seen this film in 20 years at least. And I was impressed at what a great film it was and how incredibly dark it was and how little we saw of Freddy.
Yes, little humor too.
Yeah, very little humor.
I saw this 3 months ago, and I got to say I liked it better this time. Because it's been like 15 years since I'd seen it.
Right,
I saw 3 months ago, and I was like, I don't know. Because I was comparing it to 3 and 4.
Oh, gotcha.
So I'm like, I'm going to watch it again as it... just like it's the first time I've seen Nightmare on Elm Street, and I the same thing. I thought it was a little dark, but no humor, and I liked the fact that Johnny Depp was in it too. His film debut, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, he looks like he could have diapers on.
I feel like an obsessed fan. It's been like 3 minutes since I've watched it. You guys
So there's a curious one. How many times have you watched this film? Everybody.
I've watched it pretty close to, I would say, well over 1,000 times. I would have to say.
Wow.
I could mouth it word for word without it being on TV.
Mick just fell off his rock.
1,000 times. I don't even do things I really, really, really enjoy 1,000 times.
I'm not sure I brushed my teeth that many times.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't say that out loud.
For me, I'm a late bloomer, but I don't even know how many times I've watched it, honestly. Like Paige, I know that if I was to sit back and probably close my eyes without falling asleep, but I would probably be able to watch the entire movie through memory. So, yeah. But although I will admit, it has been a hot minute since I have actually watched the movie. And by that, I mean a month. So, a hot minute.
Oh, brother.
That's a long time then, in that case. I'm only at a half a dozen. I feel like a loser. I'm like that novice here. But
No.
I will say I've watched it probably almost a half dozen times more than number 2. The second one.
Oh my God.
I use number 2 as, in a way on purpose. But anyway, we'll get to that in the next episode.
I honestly have not watched it that much.
Right.
Not at all.
Well, you don't tend to watch franchises or films that you've worked on, right?
I don't. I have a thing about that. I don't want people telling me what to do. I don't want people projecting on me when I'm designing something. And so the least likely thing that I'm going to do is the thing that you tell me to do. But that could be my personality.
Which is amazing that we've actually gotten you to do Strays.
I know.
And Critters.
I've seen more films just in this association. That is really true. You know what? I'm going to be honest about it. I don't think that I saw it since Nightmare on Elm Street 3. And I saw it in Nightmare on Elm Street when we were working on 3. There was a viewing of it and 2 in one of the labs down in downtown.
Huh.
So I hadn't seen it in a theater, which we will talk about seeing it in a theater when it first comes. When these things first come out, we're going to talk about that when we do 3 and 4.
Yeah,
because that's a trip.
Man, that would have been so amazing. I never have had the pleasure of seeing any of the Nightmare movies in theater. Well, like when they first came out. So, I mean, I've seen them in theaters now, but never when they first came out. Like, I remember there's some video on YouTube, I believe, of Halloween when people were watching it back in the day when it was in theater for the first time, and you could just hear them screaming and making comments. And today people will clap and they'll quote it, but like back then, I mean, it must have been electrifying.
Nightmare on Elm Street 3. I saw it in the first week in South Central LA. Yeah, South Central LA. Let me tell you something. I saw it in one of those theaters that everybody talks to the screen anyway. and to see Nightmare on Elm Street 3 about 4 days after it had been released, which gave everybody that was in there had probably seen it every day since it came out.
Oh my gosh.
I remember them shouting at the screen, "Look, a door!" And it was so funny. It was so funny. I died laughing. I was just, oh my God. And, to hear an entire theater full of just rambunctious, crazy people going, "Look, a door!" It was a slammy moment, man. Absolutely.
So when we get to that episode, you have to have Diandra and I do our impression of that, because we literally say this to each other all the time.
Oh my God. That is one of those moments when you're like, oh, Nancy's about to say something. What's she going to say? And she goes, "It's a door." And you're like, well, there it goes. Right out the window. God, there, Jesus, Nancy. Oh my God. Woo, come a long way.
Now, one thing that I did notice, that it was just a horror film.
Mm-hmm.
There was something about it that even there was something about the graphics that were involved in it. There's something about that you could see that it was projecting its way towards a stylized element.
Well, for us, I think that a lot of us tend to look at the original Nightmare as Nancy's story, and it's not really about Freddy himself. And if you look at it with that eyes and those eyes, it's more about survival than anything.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All she has is herself. In the end, she loses everybody around her, and she has to find her strength inside of her to overcome this horror that's attacking her. And it's such a metaphor for life. I think it was Heather herself who coined it in I Am Nancy, where she said everybody has a Freddy that they're battling.
Right. Absolutely. And let me tell you something that Rachel Talalay had always told me, that she said that if you ever just want a way to scare somebody, put a naked body in a bag with a little bit of blood. and it's so true. She's so right.
So scary.
I feel like modern horror's taken that a little too far.
Yes. Human Centipede.
Well,
So speaking of that, I mean, I was watching this thinking this is a different kind of final girl. It was probably the first time it was ever done.
Yeah, that's right.
Where she's kind of street smart and she can take over the world, and she's not like the dumb, high school kid is.
I think that's part of the reason why Nancy resonates with so many people. I know for myself, because she. Not to knock any other of the final girls later in the series, but, she, like Paige said, she only had herself, and she didn't have any superpowers. She had to figure things out herself. So she was just this normal girl next door who, when you first see her, she's probably somebody that you knew in high school or at some point in your life. And she just ended up being this total badass. I'm sorry, can I swear?
Oh yeah,
a total badass.
Yeah.
We'll beep you and we'll put in a worse word.
Yes.
What we'll do is we'll take that bad word
and make it worse,
and we'll just make a whole string of horrible things.
Like a string of bad words.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. but yeah, that's just one of the really cool things with Nancy, and she has a lot of amazing moments throughout her appearance in the Nightmare movies, particularly in part 1. But when she sets up those booby traps, it's just something else. Figures it out. She's like, what am I going to do? I don't know. I'll get a book. I'll make it myself. I'll take what I have. And because I've got nobody, I've got me, and I've got a bunch of my stuff in the basement and this book, and I'm just going to figure it out. And I'm going to go after this bastard because he's completely ruined my life and I have to do something about it. So it is extremely inspiring. It's like you can either, one of my professors in life once told me, if you don't like something, you can do one of two things. You can either shut up and live with it, or in this case, probably just she would have died, or you can do something about it. And she certainly did. She did not let it defeat her. She wanted to live and she wanted to fight back.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
Just like Macaulay Culkin.
Not to knock all the other franchises, but we always say that, like, she wasn't hiding in a closet waiting for the killer to kill her. She was going after him. She was taking it to a next level. And I feel like Nancy doesn't get the respect she deserves in the horror industry, because she really was a fighter. And I don't know if you guys can tell, but Diandra and I love Nancy. We're a little she's a little bit of our favorite. So
yeah. She's a fighter for sure. Yeah.
I want my mother and friends again.
You what?
I take back every bit of energy I gave you. You're nothing. You're shit.
The amazing thing over the years, though, is that, Paige, you and I have seen this without a doubt, is that Nancy has certainly grown in her popularity. I mean, even Robert Englund remarked on it at one of the conventions back in Horror Hound 2015, which I was not in the room because it was too packed, but I watched the panel afterward when he was like, now we're seeing a ton of Nancys. There's one over there. There's Freddy's. I mean, the first time I had ever, after dressing as Nancy for several years, first time I'd ever seen another Nancy at a convention was at Horror Hound, that same very convention in 2015, right after West Pass in Indianapolis. And I saw not one other Nancy, but two. And it's just amazing to continue to see more people being her for Halloween and more people dressing as her, going to conventions, whether it be a horror convention or Comic-Con. I mean, it's all across the board. And it's really amazing to finally see her get the credit. Now, we know she's behind Freddy still, and I know that a lot of people are just like, I'm just here for the villain, but that's okay. I mean, go ahead. Nancy, there's enough of us, to love her 10 times over. But, I mean, if you look at Heather's line, it is just extremely long. So I'm very, very glad that Nancy is finally getting a lot of representation at conventions and even in art form and just anything, or fan films like Don't Fall Asleep.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Have you seen Don't Fall Asleep?
I've never heard of it. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Just discovered it recently. I'm way behind the curve here.
You are behind
terrible?
The curve.
Isn't this terrible? I've only seen it 6 times, and I just barely noticed that.
Yeah,
it's like I was just born yesterday. Goo goo.
That explains that.
He's the worst. He really is. He's the worst. I have to tell you the truth. Is getting into the cosplay thing has people dress up like that. It took me a while to even understand it. And when we went to RadCon down here, it was probably the first time that I really, really understood. There was a guy that was dressed as
Chewbacca, right?
Chewbacca, right? And he
which he was in your little film that you made.
Yes, that's right.
You made a 30-second film with Chewbacca.
I did. Rad.
It's on our YouTube page.
You really don't want to see it. Anyway.
Now I kind of want to go stalk it.
Sharing it everywhere immediately after this.
Listen, you know what? My Dream Warrior chicken song was actually better than that.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Have you seen me singing Dream Warrior to my son's chickens?
No.
Also gonna watch that immediately after this.
Oh, look up Mick Strawn and Dawkins. Go ahead.
I'm gonna build a whole teaser on Fredheads just with that footage.
Can we? Yeah, let's take that audio. Mick Strawn singing to the chickens.
I thought you hated that song. What
Number
happened?
1 hit.
Find it. It's on YouTube.
It's so not worth it, but it's you have to see it.
You have to see it.
Here we go. Let's see if we can hear it.
Dream warrior, ain't gonna dream no more on the dream warrior.
You can hear the chickens in the back like,
You hear the chickens in the background? It's pretty good, huh?
I think they were applauding because you had that dramatic.
Yes.
I don't think they were applauding. They were running for their lives.
Shut up. We like Halloween better.
I thought Heather was so pretty in this first one.
Right.
She was. I think that we did her a misservice in the third.
What? She was stunning in the third.
You think so?
Yes.
What? Oh, hell.
Stunning.
Hold on.
In the third.
Someone calm me down. She looks so beautiful in everything she does. What
Really?
are you talking about?
She's
Really?
Stunning in the third film.
I don't care if 3 hours are separating us. I'm going to jump through.
Oh my
I
God! We were trying to make her look older than she was,
Right.
and I don't think that it. I don't think that it worked because we were doing this kind of frumpy thing
Right, yeah.
to her, and
Different clothes and
I
everything.
don't mean
Yeah.
that she's not
The
a
floral
beautiful
sweater.
person. Back, girls, please. I thought that we
Heel.
did her a disservice. We did the streak really badly. It looked incredibly fake.
Well, I will side with you on one thing, though, and you'll have to forgive me for this, Nancy, wherever you are floating around in the Fredhead verse. But Nancy has not had the best wardrobe. I mean,
Right.
those
Right.
like
Yeah,
knee-high
exactly.
socks underneath her flood jeans. I mean, you know, I feel like she
right?
was improvement.
Mark Patton got better wardrobe than she did. And basically, it's because he was wearing nothing but nipples.
Well, Mark Patton wore Versace. That yellow shirt is a Versace shirt. I asked him about that. And I said, where did you find that shirt? Because like I always wanted to like get the shirt for him as like a joke because he claims that he loved it so much, but he can never find it. And he said it was Versace. Oh. And so I'm like, well, how did Nightmare 2 get Versace? And then Nightmare 3, Nancy's wearing like her grandma's curtains as a sweater.
Well, at least she wasn't wearing a nightgown and running into an alley.
True.
Right. I mean,
well, yeah, but the nightgown was she does a nightgown really well. Okay, right. What can I say? But the suit and stuff that we put her in to make her into a professional.
Yes.
We could have done a lot better than that.
Wasn't she carrying something at one point, like a clipboard or something?
Right. It was terrible. It was like, oh my God. Yeah, and I remember fighting it at the time, but at the time I was kind of like more in the art director territory, not in the production designer territory yet.
You crossed over a lot, though, didn't you? You caused trouble?
Oh, I caused trouble everywhere I went.
Crossed over.
You need something to be blown up? I can help.
I'm so glad Diandra got that.
I got that. Please, Mick, don't run into his arms. Don't do it. Don't. It's a trick.
I want to talk about the adults and how irresponsible they are in this one.
Really?
Yes.
Like they're damaging their children. Like, oh, let's take her to a sleep study. And I don't know. I mean, you know.
Yeah, really.
And let's cover up what we did.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that couldn't have anything to do with it, right?
Right.
They don't bring
Nothing to do with
that
it.
had nothing to do with it. No, the fact that we killed this guy. What'd you say? He had a claw?
Where'd that hat come from?
There's so much in the movies about like with the way that the adults are. First of all, they murdered Freddy and they don't really believe the kids and they're irresponsible. And then you look at the way that the Nightmare films progressed and you see that 1428, apparently, according to the movie, from what you can tell, is that it was Freddy's house, whatever, and the Thompsons moved into it. They moved into this messed up person's
A blue door,
house.
too.
Right, that's right.
And so it's just kind of like, what are you thinking? Really?
Right.
What are you
Special
thinking?
kind of fucked up.
Yeah. But it's also, you know, like Heather has mentioned before, and some of the other Nightmare stars, it comes into question vigilante justice. I just saw the remake of Death Wish last Friday.
We actually,
and it's like, you know, if there's so much going on and it's like you're just buried among all these other cases, nobody's can do anything. What really can you do? You know, if this is going to continue to happen, what can you do? Is vigilante justice okay? Is it ever okay? And that's just one of those questions I think that can make for a really good ongoing discussion with what happens in A Nightmare on Elm Street. But really the symbolism is parents made this mistake. And now the kids are paying for it.
So basically, Wes Craven just created a huge PSA for vigilante justice.
Yes.
Like, don't do vigilante justice or they're going to come back and kill all your kids.
Or it could be an environmental argument.
That's right.
Yeah, Mother Nature's going to come back and get you, kids.
Right.
That's kind of a Jason Voorhees thing. I remember seeing at Crystal Lake that, you know, Jason is like Mother Nature because every time he comes to attack, there's always lightning, rain, or something like that. So
you know that Jason Voorhees that ain't my thing, right?
I've never seen it.
No, I was like, yay,
yeah.
That's good.
I know that. And he gets mad when I say I like Michael Myers, and you know.
You know what? It just doesn't count for anything.
You know what? It is.
Sorry, we're in my world.
I think, and I see where Mick's coming from because, like, I think that no disservice to Michael and Jason because I think that those are great and those fandoms are great in themselves. But Freddy just has such a personality, even though in the first one he's only in it for like 5 to 10 minutes.
Yes, and no dialogue.
No dialogue.
But you know what? I can totally see. You see, we were shown those first two films when we started Nightmare on Elm Street 3 because we saw them together, one right after the other, because we were trying to create an arc.
Right.
And we were trying to create an arc in everything, you know. No horror film had gone that big before. No horror film had like tried to create, you know, a defense, you know, like with the Dream Warriors. There were so many things that were kind of totally new about the third, you know, and we had to see those to give us that arc. And I like the makeup in 2 did not seem very good to me. And the makeup in the beginning with Freddy, I loved the stuff with the maggots and stuff, but they did follow the one rule that you have for mixed rule of horrors, you can't see the bad guy. Yeah. Don't ever see the bad guy.
Yeah.
And you know what? They followed it and they did it really well.
I love the story behind Freddy's appearance, how pretty much everything came to be, from the color of the sweater and how the sweater is torn to the fedora to the glove itself, and, you know, Robert having that stance with Freddy. I mean, it's just, there are so many little elements that went into it that I think it's so interesting to listen to that. Like reading the Never Sleep Again book by Tommy Hudson, which really goes into the first film and talks about what the house represents, and Nightmare on Elm Street, that Elm Street is never anywhere in the movie, but it's Elm Street because it was meant to represent pretty much America anywhere. Despite the palm trees and despite later films saying that it's Springwood, Ohio.
Despite all those palm trees out there in Springfield, Ohio,
But although I'm not complaining because I'm an Ohio girl, so it's just one of my moments of pride is that Freddy and Nancy are much like me. But like the glove, how it is this primal representation of the very first weapon that man had ever encountered, which was the claw, and that it had to look dirty but clean and sharp at the same time. And the fact that Lou Carlucci was not really all that experienced, and the people making the glove were not too experienced in putting it together. And I remember reading in Never Sleep Again that they were kind of thankful that they were not all that experienced in making things.
Yeah.
Because it really looked realistic. Maybe
Lou was a TV repairman from New York.
Oh wow.
Lou Carlucci. That was his background. Yeah, absolutely. And he had just gotten here, and Tazzle Bauer was like right out of college, and Jim Doyle. I don't know where Jim Doyle came from. He's a weird human being.
Yeah, but he's like Jim Doyle is Jim Doyle.
Mm-hmm.
he's like Mick Strawn. Like Mick Strawn is Mick Strawn.
Hey,
Mick Strawn sings to chickens.
A genius.
So there you go.
An absolute genius.
You sing to your own tune while you're chickens.
Jim Doyle is as a person, our personalities could not be more different. Because Jim Doyle is one of those guys that is over messing with the paper, and he's never actually looking up and meeting your eye, you know. And at the same time, this brilliant stuff is coming out. You know, he's quite a character. Me, hey, I
was referred to Mick as a ball of like sunshine and energy. Like I feel,
yes,
like
he's actually literally chained down right now.
Super cuddly.
Like it's such a good time. Like I could sit and literally watch and listen to you all day and not say a word.
They just call you cuddly.
They call me cuddly. I can't believe that.
You are
cuddly. I have the footage to prove that you're cuddly.
Well, when he's doing the podcast with me, I have to like tie him down and then poke him with a stick once in a while.
So I was going to point out a couple of things. I don't know what they use. I don't know where they went for the boiler room stuff. But it had an amazing look. And the thing is
Lincoln Heights Jail.
Oh, was it Lincoln Heights?
It was Lincoln Heights.
Was it the jail? It was the boiler room for the jail.
Yeah, it was the Lincoln Heights Jail, and it was in California. And we actually just did an interview with somebody who actually was inside of there recently.
I've spent probably collectively 2 or 3 months in Lincoln Heights Jail.
Oh my God!
Oh my gosh! The thing is Lincoln Heights Jail was really cheap. It was really at crossroads of the 110.
Yeah.
And 110 and the 5. It was right in that area that's like super accessible to everywhere. And it had a great jail look. You know, you could on the hidden. We were there all the. I cannot remember the incredible list of films that were done at Lincoln Heights. I've been in the boiler room before, but to me it kind of looks like all boiler rooms because I've been in a lot of them. There are an awful lot of places that look like that.
Yeah.
Well, there were. You know, it's funny because now a lot of that stuff has all been ripped out because of asbestos.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think about this is like on Nightmare on Elm Street 3. No, it was 4. We were in the Pasadena plant, and we were like the last film crew in before they shut it down for gross asbestos poisoning. Now, you know,
oh wow,
that's like the third building that I had been in before that had been closed down. Like, I mean, and I might say this: one of them was closed down while we were filming in it. They came in and they just cleared everybody out and said, you know, our liability isn't going to cover this anymore. You've got to get out, and you know, like a year later, the buildings are gone. You know, because all those pipes that you see have jackets that are built out of asbestos material, and they used it to keep the temperature, you know, straight. And the thing is they burst and they bloom. The asbestos kind of blooms out, and I would see that bloom all the time and never even think about it. You know, poke at it with my fingers and stuff. And
oh my God,
I'm not going to live long. I doubt that I'm going to make it to the end of this interview.
That is such bull shark. I love bull shark. So I have a question for everybody, actually, and that was when you first watched A Nightmare on Elm Street, did you see it at a certain point in the movie? Like, was it on TV? Was somebody you know watching it, and you just came in that at a time was not the beginning, or did you watch it from the beginning on? I mean, what was the first time that you saw it? How did you see it for the first time?
I saw it with a group of people who were about ready to make Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
There you go. I saw my older brothers. I was actually 10 years old when this came out. So I didn't see it until I was probably 13 or 14. And that's because my older brother rented it. So we watched it that way from the beginning.
I think that when it came out, we're talking to two zygotes.
Yes.
Yes.
Zygotes. I like that.
Zygotes. I didn't see it in the theater when it first came out, and there was no such thing as a VCR. So
yeah.
it's not like you had a collection that had one.
That had tablets and little chisels back then, right?
Yeah, but they had beta. They had beta back then.
Oh,
well, they did, but I saw it. I saw it a 35 millimeter print in a sitting room in.
See, that sounds like the way to see it.
The labs used to have
that would be so beautiful.
The labs used to have. In fact, you've seen them before because they used to be. When the mogul is sitting and watching the film.
Yeah.
in a room.
Right. I'm picturing like silent era.
Right, and it's, it's silent. Yeah, and he's making a decision. He's got the cigar right here, and we're gonna put our money behind you.
You guys aren't seeing this face. It's awesome.
So that those screening rooms. That's what one of those screening rooms full of people that were gonna make Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Watched 1 and 2, right? One right after the other. So. We saw a lot of films in screening rooms like that.
That's so cool.
Nice.
Paige?
In fact, I got to see a film called. Oh, go ahead. No,
go ahead. No, I want to hear.
I'm sorry. I was gonna carry us away. Cut, Mick.
No, this is good. We might be going off on a cool, good stream. This might be a good adventure for us.
Let it happen. Just let it happen.
Okay. I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you a little story. This is a little mixed story. While I was working with New Line Cinema, and the thing is I had so many friends from making so many films for New Line. I wasn't working exclusively for New Line, but I had a lot of friends there, and they would give me opportunities to see films that they had imported from other countries that they were thinking of buying, and then they would rework the titles and stuff. And I got to see. It was a copy of Nightmare on Elm Street 3 done Hong Kong style, in China. It was amazing. I mean, you could tell it was exactly the same story, and they had done these amazing like I don't know if it Japanese version of it or if a Chinese version of it. It would just blew me away. And the thing is they did this one scene where there's these crazy ghosts are coming up out of the basement. They're coming up out of the basement in the hospital, and that's what's going to get the kind of Joey character, right? Mm-hmm. The thing is they did it in stop motion, and the thing is when we do stop motion here, and when normal people that have labor costs do stop motion, they only move a few of the characters at a time. A lot of the other characters are going to be still, or they're going to move only once in a while. And this had a group of these just obviously ghost ghouly creatures trying to come up this ladder that reaches down to hell.
Wow.
And they had maybe 150, 200 different ghosts all moving in stop motion at the same time. The kind of thing that you can only do if you have if you're paying your animators 35 cents a day, right?
Right.
And so you have 200 animators, and you assign each one a character. And I swear to God, I'm just sitting here going, that's amazing. And then you're watching the subtitles, and the subtitles, honor is the third word. Every third word is honor.
Honor.
Because they were all written by Chinese interpreters. It was the craziest thing. It was a lot of fun to watch.
That's so awesome. That's gotta be great inspiration.
Oh, it was really oddly satisfying to see their take on a lot of the things that we had tried. And the Freddy the version of the Freddy snake, which was a serpent snake, kept coming in and out of the walls, and it was amazing. It was what you can do with that much labor.
I'm trying to picture a Japanese version of Strawn right now. I don't know why, but anyway.
Please don't do that.
Oh, he's also so cuddly, but in Japanese.
Oh, stop it! Oh, jeez. Oh my!
Love it.
So I'm going to come back to maggots.
That's very honorable of you. Maggots.
I love maggots.
I have
a question for the girls. Since they're so, what's the word? They're just well versed in the whole universe of Freddy and everything. How do they feel about how Freddy looked and acted in like the later films, like 5, 6? You know, when you get past 4.
For me, I liked Freddy in 5 because I feel like he was back to, the whole film in general was back to a darker tone. And I know it wasn't like well received by most people, but I liked him in 5. I feel like it was just a darker toned film. And then 6 is just, it's not my favorite, but
right.
I don't know how to explain it. Like 6 is not my favorite, but I actually enjoy it. Like I look at it as a separate film than the rest. And then of course there's New Nightmare, which is just phenomenal and amazing. Yeah. And it's amazing. And I remember reading somewhere an interview with Wes Craven, and he talked about the look of Freddy in Wes Craven's New Nightmare. And he said for him, his biggest regret was changing the look of Freddy, making his face look more like open sores and putting a leather jacket on him. And he said that he wished that he would have kept the makeup closer to the original because he thinks that that's what didn't connect so much with fans back then. But I love it. I love that it's not this Robert Englund interpretation of Freddy, but it's like the real Freddy. We get to see what the real Freddy, the Hell Demon, looks like.
Right. Wow. Because definitely I would say on the third and fourth that we're in watching the first and the second. Mm-hmm. The third and the fourth were pretty Freddy.
Yeah. And funny Freddy.
And there was I mean, it's a thing that they were obviously doing, but and I will say this again, the third and the fourth one, the accessibility of Freddy made that took everything up to the iconic status.
Right.
You know, up into the stratosphere. Mm-hmm. I mean, it made him Vincent Price. Is what
exactly.
It made him oddly the ambassador of horror, you know, which up until that time, you know, it was specifically Vincent Price's thing, you know, and before that it was Boris Karloff's thing, you know, and I just find that really, really interesting that, you know, the guy who brought Freddy, the guy that brought horror to the masses was, you know, just a lovable serial killer.
Right. You know what's so
weird?
Who
doesn't love a serial killer?
You saying that, Mick, almost kind of connects the dots with the whole fandom. Whoa. Like you think, like I've never heard it put that way until right now. That like he was like the Vincent Price of modern day horror. And do you think maybe that's why fans are so adamant against a remake for A Nightmare on Elm Street when they're all about remakes for Halloween or for Jason or all these other horror genres, but for some reason Nightmare is the one that people...
Well, you know, the thing is this is... I think that the...
Because, like, how can you remake Vincent Price? You know, like, how can you know...
Well, exactly.
Boris Karloff, and that's... Bela Lugosi. Like, how can you remake those? You know,
and I think it's very different. It's very different because he was a face and he wasn't behind a mask. Like, you could put anybody behind Michael or Jason, even though there is a partial love of... I mean, people are pretty partial to Crane Hodder, but still, I mean, it's very different.
There would not be a horror convention machine out there if it weren't for we had 150 people that played Michael Myers and Freddy, not Freddy, but Michael Myers and Jason and Leatherface. I mean, you know, that by itself can populate horror cons for the next 20 years. There's all the people that did that, you know, but there's still only one Freddy, you know. I mean, it's Robert Englund, you know. It isn't. Who's the other guy?
Jackie Earle Haley.
Jackie Earle Haley.
Jackie O'Haley. Yeah. Because I just don't see that.
Although maybe I am one of those Nightmare fans who is now. There's no way you can replace anybody ever, truly, but I would be curious to see what Freddy because I felt that Jackie's Freddy, it wasn't the fact that he wasn't Robert Englund to me. It was the fact that I don't think of him as Freddy. And I know some people will disagree with me on this, but Freddy has some core characteristics such as enjoying himself or in the way he carries himself or what is important to him that I don't think was necessarily carried over into that movie. But I think that if done right, if somebody portrays not Robert Englund as Freddy, not some character that we think should be scary Freddy, but the true version, staying true to the character and the person that we see on the screen is Freddy Krueger and not some guy as Freddy Krueger or a cheap imitation or anything else. But I think if you have the right actor who understands the character and can interpret it in his own way, but still be true to Freddy Krueger, like I've seen in some of the fan films, and I like very, yes, like Kevin. That's or what I was like gonna say. I was gonna say Kevin. Yeah, very, very true, very true.
Just by the nature of the fact that they're imitating, to me, I think that Skarsgård.
Oh yeah.
With it stands a better chance of becoming the new. Taking the hand off from Freddy.
If they did a prequel, I would be totally up for a prequel, like the Springwood Slasher, like showing how he really became who he was. Alexander Skarsgård would be amazing as like a pre-burned Freddy.
Oh, I think so.
See, to me, it's either that or Ribisi. I think Ribisi could really do a Freddy.
Who's Ribisi? I don't know who he is. I'm lost.
Carlo Ribisi, the guy with the just sleepy eyes, and
what was
TV show, right?
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm blanking on the TV.
I thought Robert Knepper for a little bit, but I would kind of be interested in either, like Bill Skarsgård or even just somebody who's all, because you get them mixed up. There's so many Skarsgård.
There's so many Skarsgård.
There are so many of them. Or just somebody completely new that maybe has done a couple of things but's not really had the opportunity to break out and do something pretty magnificent. I think that could be really cool.
Like a Robert, because that's what Robert was. Right. Mm-hmm. That's because that's what Robert was. Robert was not really known that too well.
Oh, he's talking about Giovanni Ribisi.
Giovanni Ribisi.
Oh,
look him up right now.
You don't think that he can be Freddy? I'm telling you.
I'm telling you who? And then we see him.
Yes.
Oh, come on.
He was on Friends.
Well,
not to go back too far.
Totally. He was on Friends.
I am the only one that I've ever heard say this, but that guy right there would be it.
Yeah, I can see that.
He's the right age.
He's not quite as creepy as Skarsgård.
Oh, you haven't seen him act.
Robert Englund, though, is cute as a button, and he was able to pull off Freddy back in the day.
Giovanni Ribisi, he was in some movie, I forgot what it was, where he was like the villain. And it was a truly like fucked up and twisted movie. I can't remember what it is. I'll have to look it up. But like,
he could do it.
It wasn't
he can
Ted,
totally do it. No, Ted was just like
totally. I'm telling you, he would be the best. He could actually, the thing is it would be really great if Robert Englund was in one more that he brings in his cousin.
They should do a Robert Englund in the future where he's like in the old folks' home.
But that pulls,
and his roommate is Michael Myers.
Yeah, exactly.
Freddy's in a wheelchair.
His roommate or his caretaker. His caretaker.
Oh, there you go.
Is
like
Ribisi,
his apprentice. Yes.
Yeah, comes in as an apprentice.
Why can't we have a girl Freddy? Why can't it be Maggie?
Oh,
why can't his apprentice be his daughter Maggie?
Who would it be?
His daughter Maggie. In part 6, he had the daughter Catherine Krueger, who was Maggie as well. Why couldn't she take over for him? Like, couldn't she like get in like a mental institution and get twisted and then start doing all that?
Or even like
back in the day,
in some of the books, there were like cult movies or cult following for Freddy, where they just basically were like, we love Freddy, and then somebody would like become his protege. And I mean, there's just like all that those kinds of possibilities out there for what wasn't Paige, wasn't there a girl in the Innovation Comics? Wasn't there a blonde girl, short blonde hair, who was like trying to Freddy was like her master or something. I can't remember what her name was off the top of my head, but there was somebody in one of the comics who I think was along those lines. She was trying to become his
there's that famous image. There's a famous image where like there's a girl sitting in Freddy's hands.
Yes,
that's what it's from. Like he's like almost like her puppet master.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, obsessed with these films. Like we know.
Okay, this is good.
Okay,
see, I enjoy some of these side conversations.
Hey, once you don't fall asleep, we'll have an entire new perspective on all of that, because I'm pretty sure there was some deep thinking and some serious symbolism and meaning behind that. So
all I have to say is this: you'll need a mop.
No.
Okay, everybody's favorite line, and then we're gonna judge this. My favorite line out of the movie: "You'll need a mop." Okay, how many times have you seen it? You've heard that line, right?
I love it. It's hilarious. It's because it's so random. What's the coroner got to say about it? He's been in the John.
I know it is like the only piece of humor in the whole film.
It is,
and it's so misplaced.
Why you forget that? And you need a mop.
Yeah, you'll need a mop.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, Paige, your favorite line.
My favorite line is I have two. I have one where Nancy is saying to Glenn, well, what if they meet a monster in their dreams? And then he says, will they turn their back on it? And she says, well, what if they don't? Yeah. And he says, well, then those people don't wake up to live to tell. And then my other favorite line is when Nancy is in the boiler room and she's screaming. She's like, what does she say? Look, it's my favorite line. I totally spaced. It's where she's screaming.
Kruger, when she says that I'm here, come out and show yourself, you bastard.
Yes.
She
says. She says, I'm here. And it's like literally like she's like here to play and fight with him.
Okay, Diandra, favorite line.
Oh, God, this one's really tough. I know she has a lot of iconic lines, but one of mine, I do like Paige. I have two. The one is when she is again in the boiler room and she says, come out and show yourself, you bastard. I love it when she screams that at him. And I also love it when she says, get my dad, you asshole. I love that. I think that is hilarious.
Right, exactly. Okay, Kurt, favorite line?
I think hall pass.
Hall pass.
Where's your hall pass?
Where's your hall pass?
I just like that line.
That's a Lynn Shay special right there. How many claws?
How many claws
out of 5 do you give the original Nightmare on Elm Street?
5 out of 5, even though Freddy only has 4.
How many new Nightmare Claws do you give?
Wow.
Good point.
I will also say 5 out of 5. Sorry, I'm all in on this one.
Okay, Kurt.
I'm not as. I'd say 4 out of 5, and only because I like other films in that series better.
And the phone call.
I'm gonna go 4 out of 5 on that.
It's over.
Yeah.
It's over.
What? Wait, they're mute. It's a mutiny.
How did you guys only give it 4 out of 5? It's the original. It's amazing, and Wes wrote it, and it's just. Sorry, I'm biased. Dream Warriors is my favorite film of all time. Not just my favorite Nightmare film. It's my favorite film of all time. But I still give the original 5 out of 5 because it's what started it all.
Yep.
Okay. Well,
you got a point there. It's set it up, but
it's a good point. It doesn't change that it's still 4 out of 5 for me.
I know.
Oh, I get you, Kurt. Because when I actually watched the films, I'm pretty sure in reverse, kind of. They were all over the place when I first watched it. I think I watched 6, then Freddy versus Jason, and then from then on, I think maybe the first was a little down the line because I was a super scaredy cat at the time. But when I first watched the movie, I was like, kind of boring. Not gonna lie. I was Nancy's character is great, but kind of boring. So that's one of the moments that I regret. I'm not proud of, but it's the truth. I have to own up to it.
Yeah.
I always laugh when Diandra says that she watches 6 for the first one. I was like, you watched 6 for the first one, and then
it holds a special place in my heart.
This is one thing I've definitely noticed is everybody, for some reason, their first nightmare. Yeah, I hear that all the time. It has a place in my heart.
Yeah.
You know? And I have to tell you something. If from my position, sometimes I get just at least once a month, I get just an incredible somebody getting a hold of me saying that the Nightmare series, saved their lives. Sometimes that it set their life's work. You have no idea what it's like to get an email from somebody that says, I live in Colombia and I became an architect because of the design of Nightmare on Elm Street 3. That's actually happened to me. And I'm like, whoa, that's, at the time I was trying to make rent.
Right. And you never got a call from somebody saying I became a serial killer because of that?
Not one.
There are a couple people out there, for sure.
So this has been us along with and you have to now you
and
have to
I was calling them girls, but I feel bad about that. They're really ladies. I meant to say that.
Boss ass bitches.
Classy.
Yeah, those badass bitches. Yes.
Paige is like, we're classy, and I was like, badass bitches.
They are great friends of mine, is what they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I like these girls. Badass bitches, I should say.
I'm going to ask you really quick what you got coming up, and then we're going to end this. And spoiler, we're going to go do another one.
We're going to talk to them again at some point. I don't know when. We have to schedule it somehow.
That's killing me.
Does it have to end?
Does it have to end? So what are you guys doing, and what you got coming up?
So right now, we are currently working on Fredheads, the documentary. And that goes into play with what you said, Mick, about the person reaching out and saying how the film has changed their lives. We get to hear all those stories ourselves, and we thought, let's just put it on film and let's share the fandom stories. So,
how soon before it's going to be released?
Like 5,000 years from now. I feel like it's
so tough for you, Mick, because of all your asbestos.
Yes.
Yes, that's right.
No.
I ain't going to lay. You know what? If it's another 2 years, I may not be around to see it.
No,
live long and prosper.
Yes, we'll find an asbestos cure by then.
Okay, cool.
No, I'm not sure when it's going to be out, but we're still filming. We are going to film the rest of this year because we've got some really great stories and some really great people who have reached out to us and want to be a part of it. And so we're like, well, it doesn't have to be finished now. We can continue to film it. So we're working on Fredheads, and that's pretty much my biggest project that I'm doing. I've got a couple small little independent, like romantic, non-horror related stuff going on, but those will be out probably this year. We're working on an anthology called Crushed, and it's about breakups. But whenever I say I'm working on an anthology about Crushed, people are like, "Oh, another horror movie? Like you're crushing somebody?" And I'm like, "No, like no, not at all. Like not at all." So, but that's what I'm working on.
Yeah, good. Hey, Diandra, you got any secret projects?
Well, Paige pretty much covered Fredhead, so I'm really looking forward to all the filming we're going to be doing and this year. And I've got everything that's going on still with Elm Street Radio, and put up a website for that. So trying to tweak that and make it look as nice as possible. But then creating some different content with that. But then I am also going to be filming a short here in spring that is based on a fear of mine, a personal fear that I've had for quite some time. And it is called, I haven't released the name yet, but it's called Suddenly. And of course, it is a horror film, but I'm really looking forward to making this because there's really no blood. It's more and there's really not a lot of dialogue. It's more in the reaction of the character and what happens to her. And it's kind of almost like a drama about a horror story in a way, which I'm quite fond of. And I have a couple of other things that are also happening, but I'm not kind of talking about them just yet. So looking forward to everything.
and I'm Mick Strawn.
Yeah. And I'm Kurt Thomas, and I'm going to be eating a turkey sandwich tomorrow, probably around 1 p.m.
There you go.
That's what I have coming up.
Sounds good. And this is Dream Warrior Review along with
Paige
and Diandra
from
Fredheads and
Elm Street Radio.
And we are Elm Street Fanatics.
We thank you for listening. As always, you can find us on Podbean. You can find us on YouTube. And, of course, Facebook and Twitter. You can reach out to us at DWR Review. Or you can send us an email, dreamwarriorreview@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.